Hi, I'm Cher, the Shadow Walker, and I'm taking a look at the last 48 hours over the eastern provinces for Bigfoot, Dogman, Hellhound, Skinwalker, and Spider Humanoid sightings, starting with Nova Scotia between March 17th through 19th. Bigfoot sightings near Kejimkujik or Keji on Highway 8. March 18th at 10:30 p.m., a large bipedal figure was seen crossing a private woodlot. The witnesses described the mind speak or an emotional download as heavy feeling before the sighting, and they reported it to the Atlantic Cryptid file. There was also a dogman sighting, and that was Cape Breton Highlands near Meat Cove. It was March 17th at 3:15 a.m. A hiker reported a soul-reading encounter where a creature with canine features and a human-like torso stood motionless on the ridge, and they reported it to the Nova Scotia Dogman file, 2026. And a hellhound sighting near Peggy's Cove in the Chiboucto Peninsula. On March 18th at 12 a.m., two motorists reported seeing a large black canine with glowing eyes running parallel to their vehicle at high speeds before vanishing into the brush. A spider humanoid. Garden lots near Lunenburg. March 17th at dusk. A resident reported a multiple-limbed entity moving with unnatural speed along the roof line of an abandoned barn, and they reported it to the Zero File regional scanners. Skinwalkers in Guysborough County on March 19th at 2 a.m. A farmer reported livestock distress and the sight of a mimic, an animal that looked like a coyote but moved with distorted human gait. And they reported it to the local dogman file. I guess they didn't know which file to report it to. Next, we will be looking at New Brunswick over the same time period. And the first is a Bigfoot, and it was in the Elgin, Caledonia mountain area. It was March 18th at 11:45 p.m. A group of campers reported knocking sounds, followed by intense emotional download and a massive shadow moving through the brush. And they reported it to the New Brunswick Cryptid file. Dogman. In the Kingston Peninsula, March 17th at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, a local resident reported a soul-reading event where a creature with a wolf-like head and a human-like hands was seen peering into a second-story window. And they reported it to the Canadian Dogman file. Hellhounds in the Sackville area, Highway 2, on March 18th at 1:15 a.m. A transport driver reported a large, unnaturally fast canine with red eyes shining, keeping pace with his truck at 100 clicks before leaping a 6-foot fence. And he reported it to the Hellhound file. Spider humanoids in Miramichi in the River Valley on March 17th at 10 p.m. Two night fishers reported a pale, spindly entity with elongated limbs scuttling vertically up a rock face near the water's edge. Wouldn't you want to leave that area then? And they reported it to the Zero file. Skinwalker or shapeshifters in the Moncton area in the outskirts in Irish Town. This was March 19th at 3:45 a.m. A report was filed regarding a glitchy animal that appeared to change its physical proportions while moving from a wooded area to a residential tree line. And they reported it in the to the Hellhound file. Next, we're going to take a look at Prince Edward Island. In Prince Edward Island, the first incident is a Bigfoot, and it's in Greenwich and PEI National Park, and it was March 18th at 11:15 p.m. A single witness reports a large bipedal figure standing near the edge of the dunes, described as translucent or shimmering in the moonlight before moving toward the woods. And they reported it to the Atlantic Cryptid file. A dog man in Goose River in the forest area, doesn't say exactly where, March 17th at 3 a.m. A report surfaced of a soul-reading encounter near near a ready-to-build property. The creature stood 7 feet tall with pointed ears and human-like eyes that glowed amber, and they reported it to the Dogman File of Canada. And a hellhound in the Surrey and Eastern Kings area on March 19th at 12:30 a.m. A local resident reported 3 large shadowy canines with red eyes pacing their vehicle near the Sportplex. The animals appeared into the tree line. Oh, sorry, the animals disappeared into the tree line with no tracks left in the light snow, and they reported it to the Hellhound File. Shapeshifters in North Rustico in the Cavendish area. On March 18th at 10 p.m., a series of reports involving a glitchy animal that appeared to be large, like a deer, but transformed into a canine gate when crossing the road, and they reported it to the PEI dedicated file. Spider humanoid in the Cardigan-Brundle area. On March 17th, late evening, a hiker reported seeing a multi-limbed entity moving through the upper canopy of trees with impossible fluidity and a clicking vocalization, and they reported it to the Zero file. Next, we're going to take a look at Newfoundland. And in Newfoundland, on the Avalon Wilderness Reserve, a Bigfoot was spotted on March 18th at 9:45 p.m. A group of hikers reported a shimmering bipedal figure that seemed to blend into the trees. Witnesses noted a sudden drop in temperature and a complete silence of the forest and the birds. And they reported it to the SSR database. Dogman near the Gander River Valley, and that was on March 17th at 1:20 a.m. A hunter reported a soul-reading encounter with a creature having a canine muzzle and distinctively human-like shoulder structure, observed standing near a riverbank, and they reported it to the Canadian Dogman File. And a hellhound, Wiltless Bay Line, March 19th at 2:10 a.m. Multiple motorists reported a large black shadow-like canine with glowing yellow eyes pacing cars at highway speed before melting into the fog, and they reported it to the Hellhound File. And a spider humanoid in the Bonavista Peninsula, March 17th at 11:30 p.m. A fisherman reported a spindly, multi-limbed entity scuttling across the jagged rocks of the shoreline. It moved with a clicking sound similar to the ones that we've heard in the past, or been reported in the past, and they reported it to the 2020 file. Skimwalker, shapeshifter, Deer Lake outskirts on March 18th at 3 a.m. Report was filed of a distorted coyote that stood up on 2 legs, looked unfinished or glitchy before retreating into the bush. And they've reported it to the Atlantic Cryptid File. And the next one we have here is the Northwest Territories and the Yukon for sightings. So, a Bigfoot, or Nage, in the Crestview, Yukon area on March 18th at 11:10 p.m., a 2-meter tall figure was seen walking in a ditch with purpose. As it approached the lamppost, it became translucent, and they reported it to the White Horse Lore file. Dogman in the Nanny Valley, Northwest Territories on March 17th at 3:30 a.m. A research team reported a soul-reading encounter with a bipedal canine. The entity projected a feeling of territorial warning before vanishing, and they reported it to the Dogman file. And a hellhound and Yellowknife on the outskirts Ingram Trail area. On March 19th at 1:45 a.m., a motorist reported a massive black canine with red, burning eyes pacing their vehicle at high speed near Prosperous Lake, and they reported it to the Hellhound file. And spider humanoid in the Tane River in Whitehorse, March 17th at 10:20 p.m., a resident reported a pale multi-limbed entity scuttering with mechanical precision along the underside of a bridge, and they reported it to the 02020 file. And Skinwalker or Crawler on Dempster Highway in the Yukon on March 18th at 2:15 a.m. A truck driver reported a glitchy humanoid that initially looked like a caribou, but stood up and moved with distorted human gait. And they reported it to the North Atlantic digital scanners. And that is everything for cryptids. Thank you so much for listening. Have an absolutely wonderful day and enjoy yourself if you're out there. If you're on the trails, remember, don't go alone and always go prepared.